Number 5, Resident Evil 7. Oh man, there's such a long story with me in Resident Evil 7, and I love this game. I hated the demo. I love the series. That's why I bought it. You know, I bought this game fully expecting not to like it because of the demo, but because of the reviews and other things like that. It's like, okay, people like this. I'm getting into it. And what it is almost perfect for what I want from Resident Evil. This is what Resident Evil always has been. I don't think it's scary, and I think that's 100% fine. The Resident Evil games were never about being super scary. They were about surviving. They were about shitty controls, and that were intentionally shitty. Like, the shooting in this game is not great. That's the point, right? It shouldn't be great. It shouldn't feel necessarily good to shoot things. It should feel clumsy, and it is, and it's so much fucking fun. And this is one of those games too. I ended up playing 3 times. I did a speed run of it. I did a run of it where only used 3 healing items. I played this game a ton of time. Am I gonna die here in my video that I picked? And it does it so goddamn well. It is almost exactly what I want from a Resident Evil game in basically every way. I don't think the first person angle detracts at all. I think it's additive by and large. And the only thing it's missing, honestly, as a big Resident Evil fan, as probably too big of a Resident Evil fan, because as an aside, I watched for the first time the 5th Resident Evil movie a couple nights ago and really enjoyed it. That's how big of a Resident Evil fan I am. So, okay. I think the only thing it's missing is ties to the series, like more ties to the series, more characters, or at least references to characters I know. And that the enemies aren't that great. I think besides that and maybe a few other weird finicky things, I think the DLC is terrible. Besides all that, such a phenomenal game. There's so few things I can say negatively about like this game. Like towards the last third, right, it becomes a lot more actiony, or maybe even the last half, right? But it starts changing. It's like, oh, now this is a Saw style scenario, or now you're on a boat with the Lonely Island and T-Pain, and you have no equipment. And so you're starting from scratch again. And it was a beautiful thing to do, because a lot of these games, once you get to the end, you are an armory. You are walking around with a submachine gun, 17 grenades, and you're just blowing dudes away. Like, and this game at the end does become that. And I think a lot of Resident Evil games become that. If you don't think they do, you haven't played one recently, because even Resident Evil 1, you're killing a lot of dudes at the end. Okay, just a fun fact. It's just a little more actiony now. So they all kind of turn into that. But what this game does is right before that, right when you're like fighting a lot of dudes and it's about to be the stunning conclusion, it dials it back and gives you nothing and has you fight to survive again in a way that's scary and fantastic. And it's so good as a fan. I got an achievement. It's so good as a fan to see these settings we've seen before, but now it's modern. Now it's first person in this new gameplay style. Like, I've been in this one goddamn room for 10 minutes. I love it. It's such a good game. I honestly, it maybe it should be higher. I don't know, but the rest of this list is packed with some pretty damn good titles. Things just keep getting better and better. And the year keeps getting better and better. And that's why I like doing the halfway through the year thing. So Resident Evil 7, definitely play it. Don't expect it to be a scary game. I don't know. Some people didn't like that it wasn't scary enough. And I'm like, I don't know what. It's not that scary. Like, none of these games are that scary. All the jump scares in Resident Evil 7 are in the first hour. And then you're like just wandering around. Now, maybe surprising at how low it is on the list, Breath of the Wild. Number 4 on the list of my 10 favorite games of 2017. I am a big Zelda fan. So obviously I'm going to play Zelda. Obviously I'm going to buy the Switch for no goddamn reason to play Zelda. And I really, really enjoyed Zelda. It just has a lot of problems. And maybe I'll start with the problems and loop back into how it's good. I don't think the combat... I'm fine with the weapon degradation, but I don't think the combat's particularly memorable overall. In fact, you can just kind of run past everything. The side quests are forgettable and offer no reward. Literally no reward. That's like money. I don't need money. I think I finished the game with like 60,000 rupees. I don't need money. Okay, so your requests for money doesn't interest me. The equipment system isn't that like, it's just kind of there. It's fine. But what this game does so freaking well is exploration. And I'm playing another game right now that's further up on the list. Barely, that does exploration super well, but it doesn't get the heart of what this has, what Breath of the Wild is. It might be missing Zelda dungeons proper. It might have too big of an overworld map. Sure. It might be missing a lot of other Zelda staples that I really feel like should be here, and it's disappointing that they're not. But what it does is have those moments of exploration on a grand scale where you're going through a canyon and you're seeing all these different things and you want to explore all of it. You want to see every nook and cranny. I'll never forget, I was in this field and I turned the corner. I was like, oh, it's getting sandy over here. Like, oh, it's a beach. It's a river leading to the beach. Like, okay, I'm going to go over here. And I'm on the side of this beach just looking around at what people are doing, and I'm fighting some enemies. I'm like, man, I shouldn't be here on this beach, and you're struggling and surviving through this weird beach. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna turn in. And I turn in and I see a tower, and it's in this jungle. And I think, okay, I'll get to this tower and then I'll stop playing, which is famous last words. It probably took me an hour to get to this tower. And it was fantastic to go through this jungle, to discover it. There's so much discovery here in this world, and every section of it. There might be parts of it that aren't very interesting, but by and large, it is so interesting so much of the time that I really feel like I went to so many of these little areas, and I loved all of it. I mean, so I have complaints about this game, but the first 40 hours of it, I really didn't have those complaints. It's the problem is that I kept playing the game for another 70 hours, which sounds like a positive. But the exploration of it all, seeing everything this game has to see, is why it's so high on the list. That is why it's a very special game. That is why it's a game we're going to remember for years and years and harken back to and etc. and whatever. That's why. And I don't think it's the best Zelda game. I think it's missing so many of the Zelda elements that I'd want. I think there are very questionable design decisions, particularly in having so many shrines and not just like getting rid of most of the shrines and strapping them all together into dungeons. I think this is the only Zelda game where there's no keys in the dungeon. Don't quote me on that, but the dungeons don't have keys. Like these beasts aren't that great. And so there's a lot of rough edges, I feel like, here, but it could be refined into one of the best games ever made. I just don't think it's there. And I know that's maybe not a popular opinion, but I don't think it's there. It is phenomenal, though, for what it is. And that first 40 hours, like I said, is just pure joy. Pure joy. And it's tough to really... to be like, well, it falls apart after 110 hours. Like, really? Most things fall apart after 110 hours, right? I think it's a little goofy. But what games are better than Zelda? I'll tell you. Horizon Zero Dawn. I think I played some more of it this last week, this morning. I think this game, as I finally start to understand how the combat officially works, besides the exploration, the world in Horizon is beautiful and is fun to explore, but where you're going isn't exactly like seeing a tree in Breath of the Wild is fun and interesting. and going around in a corner and looking under a rock is fun and interesting in Zelda. In Horizon, that stuff's non-existent. So it's really more about just running around and having the stealth mechanics and having the combat. And that all is phenomenal. I love the stealth, hiding in the brush, the crafting, the gathering mechanics work super well. And now that I'm finally understanding the combat a little more, because I bought a bunch of new weapons that I probably should have bought hours ago, I'm laying traps, I'm throwing bombs, like sticky bombs on guys, and I'm jumping up and down because I have this slow down time ability, because the perks are actually relevant and super good perks. Like, by and large, 70% of the perks are meaningful choices that you want in this game, and that's rare. That is so rare. Especially the next game on this list has a terrible skill tree, but it's still a better game. So I'm jumping up and down, and I have this skill where the time slows down, so I'm jumping in slow motion as I do it. And it's so much fun to just see these creatures react, to set up traps, to blow them up, and learn like, oh, I shoot this, I shoot its little underbelly, its underbelly blows up, and now it's doing all these things. Like, it's incredible to see. It's a joy to do. It's so much more interesting than Breath of the Wild's combat. Its world, it has quests that are stupid, but offer rewards because you can level up and you can get better equipment. And there are some issues with that. And I think there's some issues with breaking components off of machines. It's too nebulous as to when something's about to break off, but whatever. Besides all that, it's a damn fine game, and everything just feels so buttery smooth and polished in Horizon Zero Dawn in a way that is almost unparalleled in any other game. It feels like a damn good game when you play. Like, it has a feel to it. It's a tangible thing when you play it. I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, oh, this has something here. This is special. And as much as I have some complaints about it, it's one of those things, just like Breath of the Wild. You can get stuck in it, get lost in it for hours and hours and hours. And I think, honestly, one of the reasons why I like it maybe more than Zelda is because, and those two games, by the way, are really close to me. I don't know if it'll change. Is because it's smaller, right? I've played maybe close to 30 hours and I've done 40% of the game. And I think that's 100% fine. Like, Breath of the Wild is too big to where it kind of becomes uninteresting, some of the places you go to, because there's too many. You can't make 1,000 interesting places. You can maybe make 500. But then if you still include the other 500 uninteresting places, well, now you've diluted it. And I think having a smaller world, I think having more emphasis on these crazy creatures, which is something Zelda's missing, the monsters, the variety there is non-existent. These, sure, it's a giant alligator, sure, it's a weird leopard, tiger, whatever. This is a dinosaur, okay, fine. But they're varied and interesting and fun to fight, and it's so unique too. Like, this is an armored core, but you're breaking off components of these robots in a way that very much feels different than just a normal game. A normal game where you're hunting animals, right? And I'm telling you, it's so flashy and fun to do. It's just fun to be in. There's no point. Well, there are a few points, but there are very little points. Like, when you're just wandering around the world fighting normal things and not fighting boss monsters or things you're not good at fighting, which is like a lot of stuff if you're me. It's so damn good. Completing the trials, just exploring, picking up little relics, finding out the history of this world. It's so fascinating, and they do such a good job. I do want to point out, though, the the NPC dialogue and the facial animations are just as bad as Andromeda's, if not worse. Okay, game industry, if not worse. So just put that out there, because it's pretty bad. It's real bad in some instances, and I think some people just wanted Mass Effect to fail. And that's why they shit all over it, because if you thought this was great, inconsistency. Hey, I got a trophy. I'm getting a lot of trophies in these videos. And number 2, is Nioh. And I love the Souls games, but I really started to appreciate, I don't know why I picked this section of this video. I really started to appreciate Nioh when I went back for the DLC. The first bit of DLC, which came out about a month or so ago, 6 weeks, 2 months, who knows? Could have been 3 years ago, for all I know. Really started to appreciate it more because since then I'd gone back and played the Dark Souls 3 DLC, which was fine, but this just is so much more fun. It takes it in a new direction. It isn't a Souls clone. It has Souls DNA all over it, but it's a bit like we have a common ancestor in the ape or whatever. I'm not a scientist. Like, we're similar creatures, but we're lots of differences, right? Like, there's so many differences here with weapon variety, the different items you can use, buffs, debuffs, little ninjutsu, the magic, or the little guardian spirit you can summon, using your ki, which is your stamina, responsibly. The fact that a lot of these times the battle will be to deplete the enemy's ki to get them in a stagger stance and then take advantage of them. Something like that adds another wrinkle, as well as, you know, protecting your own ki, defeating their ki. Different oni where they can damage your stamina regen and you're damaging their stamina. There's so many little wrinkles and layers to it. I didn't even mention the skill trees for each weapon and all these other things. Like, it's just such a system with layers and layers and layers, and I think some of the layers are stupid and don't even really need to be there by and large, but everything is added onto it in a way that makes it super unique from Dark Souls or Bloodborne, and a ton of fun to do. I think this game, also, I'll mention it again, it got painted as this like super hardcore Dark Souls samurai game, and it's difficult. I don't think I'd describe it as hard. I think Dark Souls is way harder than this game, by a mile, like by a country mile. This game is so much easier than those games, and I think that's fine, because what it has here is still super damn compelling and very unique, especially with the feudal Japan. We don't get feudal Japan in anything, like, ever. So it's super cool to see that, and to fight these crazy creatures. We don't get that either. There's so much uniqueness here, but throw all that away, right? The gameplay of it is so damn solid. So much fun to do. I played 60 hours of this game, probably a little more than that now with the DLC, and it is the gift that keeps on giving. I want to platinum this game. It is so damn good in what it does. And it has that weird Okami problem where it's like too long, which is a problem, but like at the same time, like, yeah, I'll take another slice of cake, sure. Like, that's what it is. So good. So good. Really, really love Nioh. A lot of N games this year. Horizon, there's an N in that. Zelda, there's an N somewhere. I don't think there is a Legend, has an N. Okay, we're good. There's an N in all these games. But I love Nioh. I think Nioh is going to be one of those games I remember years from now. The same way I brought up Nier accidentally. That's going to be a game I remember, right? I'll forget about moments in Yooka-Laylee, and I'll just remember I enjoyed it a lot. But I'll remember Nioh for years and years to come in a way that's very different when you're talking about these two games. But my favorite game of the year, dramatic pause, wait for it. The dramatic pause is called I'm Thirsty. As I picked the least interesting Nioh clip, fucking idiot, is Prey. Prey is Bioshock in space, and that sounds like a neg, but it isn't. what I remember loving about the original BioShock was the exploration, was that first couple of hours where you're scrounging for bullets, you're looking in toilets, you're opening every cabinet. And as BioShock went on, it got less like that, right? You found all the weapons, you knew what to expect. It wasn't that big of a deal. Even fighting the big daddies, halfway through the game it was like, okay, let's do this. And, you know, that's fine, right? But I really enjoyed the beginning of the game, where it was a slow, methodical journey. And that's what Prey is the entire time. I forget my playtime. It was about 30 hours. But everything in it, right? You're exploring this space station, and it feels like a real space station. There's not like hidden rooms or weird areas. Like, you can go to everything. You can float outside of it to the whole station and see it. And it has that slow pace. Every single new area I went into had that, okay, what's going on here? Let me hug the wall and see what's happening. Because I don't want to trigger any enemies. I don't know what's around the corner. And part of this is because of the mimics that can jump out of boxes, seemingly, if you're not prepared. But part of it is like, it's constantly scrounging. Like, this is a game for hoarders who be hoarding. Like, and it is fantastic to be rummaging around this entire damn time and putting things into the recycler, which is so smart, and recycling them down into components to which to craft with. That's what it is. Like, I have such fond memories of that initial BioShock thing. I played the Prey demo, and I fell in love. I played that Prey demo for 6 hours. Multiple playthroughs. I think 2 full playthroughs. And I was still finding new things. When I got into the final game, there were still things I didn't know. There were still, like, oh, I could have jumped up there and gone, like, oh, wow. There are things in this game you have to look for. You have to think about. And you don't, but I say that, you don't have to, right? And I use this example. I wrote a review for the game, and I use this example all the time. There's a locked door, right? And in a lot of games, you'll come to a locked door. And maybe they'll do this in E3 presentations. They used to do this a lot. Like, you come to this locked door, and there's 20 different ways you can get in. Let's see how, right? And then when you play the game, it happens once. But in Prey, it happens all the time. So here's what happens constantly throughout the entirety of Prey, right? You get to the locked door. Well, maybe you can hack through the door because you just have a good enough hacking skill. You've leveled up hacking. You hack through the door and you get in, right? Maybe you found the key card earlier because you're good at exploring and whatever. You found it on a body, on a desk, wherever. Okay, fine. Maybe you found the key code password on a computer in another room on a post-it note stick to the screen that you would only have gotten if you had looked at it. Okay. This door's locked, right? But there's a window. You break the window and you can get in. But oh no, I can't break that window. But there's a small gap underneath the window. And I can turn into a cup, which you can do, or a lot of objects, and roll around as the cup, mimic the cup, into the room, pop out, and now you're in the room behind the locked door. Or you have a foam dart gun, which you can use to point at a touchscreen in the room through a broken window that you can't climb through for some reason. And you point and you shoot, and I've done this in the game, you shoot at the buttons on the touchscreen, navigate to where it says open door, and you open the door via the bolt, Nerf gun. That's how you get to the door. Or there's a giant, there's a side entrance, right? But there's a bunch of debris in front of it. You can't get out of the way. Well, if you have a strength ability, you can lift all the stuff out of the way. But maybe you didn't level that up, but you have a recycling grenade, which basically just recycles everything in the nearby vicinity into its core components, including the boxes that are in the way. Maybe another way is that there's scaffolding above it, and only because you looked up there and you were thinking about it, which is something Prey rewards constantly, thinking and looking around and being in that environment. God, if this was in VR, that would be a VR game I'd love. You like, okay, let me use the glue gun to build a foam pathway along a wall to climb up onto the scaffolding and then into the room. And that's like, there's more ways, right? I've just described like 7 different ways to get into this locked door, but there are more. There are more ways to get to this door. And it was so much fun to figure out how I wanted to get into this door, how I could. Like, I enjoyed just seeing the ways because, like I said, it's constant. Constantly through this game are moments like that where you can see this and go, well, I could have gone in this way, or I could have gone in and done that. Or what if I did this? There are, and this choice, these multitude of choices is also in the combat where, and that affects the skill tree and all these other things too. I have turrets. I can pick up a turret and I can throw it down and it'll attack an enemy. But I'm fighting this guy and he can use his psionic abilities against me. I have a grenade that disables psionic abilities. So I throw the grenade that disables psionic abilities. I slow down time, jump up on him. He still doesn't see me, so I have the take out the shotgun, do a stealth attack on him, because it doesn't see me. That does double damage or whatever. Time's still slowed down. I'm shooting him. He used to have turrets spinning around him, but before the battle, I threw a thing to disable them. Like, there's so many weird ways to take advantage of this combat that it's crazy. And then it's not even like you have to do stuff like that because the enemies, like I said, they sometimes, these crazy guys, these floating mother brains, can have turrets circling around them that are just going to shoot at you. And you throw a grenade that disables electronics, and now they're disabled. But now he's going to shoot you with weird brain waves. And you have to be ready to fight back. How are you going to fight back? Do I switch to a pistol? Do I switch to this? Do I get a stealth attack? Do I wait for him to come over here? Do I do all of these weird things? It's so much fun. Every single combat encounter I thoroughly enjoyed. It's not, I'll bring up BioShock again. It's not like a Big Daddy fight where it's a fight for your life in a lot of respects. They're smaller. And I think that's a much better way to go about it. They're shorter fights. They can kill you just as easily if you screw up. But it's something where you see an enemy and you stop and you go, how am I going to do this? Let me take a second. What am I going to do? And then you put like 3 things into motion. Like I said, throwing a grenade, slowing down time, or shooting them with the glue gun to freeze them for a second, taking out a mimic first, like taking out the wrench, or doing all these things. Like, there's so many different ways and paths to the solution, and it's a puzzle. The platforming is a puzzle, the combat is a puzzle, and it's so much fun to solve. Like right here, I'm looking, oh, I found a door. Let me just bloop the thing, and now I can get up there. Oh, well, now I found a secret entrance into this other thing. Oh, where did I fall to? I found to an area I had already made a path over earlier. Another way that I'd already solved that problem. And it maybe it's one of those things that just like is so incredibly impressive to me, but I loved playing Prey. Basically every second of it. The end of it is a little not as good. But overall, man, this is one of the best games I've ever played, bar none. I think this is, to me, one of the games of the generation, up there with Zelda or Horizon. Like, it's above those games to me, and I want to play it again on the hardest difficulty and really be scrounging around and really feel these fights where it's survival, because by the end I did have an armory with me, right? But at any point I could just not fight like that, and I chose not to. I chose to fight each fight like I didn't have 30 healing items. I did, and I could have made a ton more, but I chose to fight it where it's like, I don't want to use healing items, so I don't want to get hit at all. That's how I'm playing this fight. And playing it like that was such a joy. Each new area, it has that feel, that BioShock slow exploration feel that I don't think a lot of games have, and this does it better. It does it the best. I loved every second of Prey. I am so bummed out that it didn't set the world on fire, because it really should. This is one of those games, this should have been, the response we got to BioShock should have happened to this game. This should have set the world on fire, but it didn't. And it kind of sucks, because yeah, we did have Zelda, and we did have Horizon, and Persona, and Nier, and Nioh, and Resident Evil 7. Like, we had all those games before this one. Months, weeks before it. And maybe that affected it, maybe it didn't, but it really, to me, feels like it kind of did. A lot of people were sour on it. IGN had this terrible bug, which now ruined the fucking Metacritic, which, whatever. Who cares about that? But I didn't have any problems on the PC version. Just as an aside, pretty perfect. A few minor things, but nothing game-breaking. All I can think about is just how much fun it was to be in the world, to solve its problems, to see its world. Because it felt like being in a space station. It didn't feel like, oh, this is the forest level or whatever. Like, this is the space station, and now I'm slowly exploring over here, slowly exploring over there, and I love that. And I know it plays very directly into exactly the type of game I want to play, and that's why it's my list. You have your show, you can make your own goddamn list, right? That's how that works. No one's watching the show anyway. So yeah, I guess I'll recap the list here. Number 10, Yooka-Laylee. Number 9, Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. Number 8, ARMS. Surprising, even me. Number 7, Rime. Number 6, Nier Automata. Number 5, Resident Evil 7. Number 4, Breath of the Wild, Zelda. Number 3, Horizon Zero Dawn. Number 1, Nioh. Or number 2, Nioh. Number 1, Prey. I know how to read. Those are my top 10 games of 2017 so far, and I'm sure a ton of this is going to move around. Particularly, I'm playing a game right now, Hollow Knight. I just started today. Wow, that game's really good. I think that easily knocks off one of these games. So fantastic. But anyway, do the show every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/thegamefanatics. Feel free to do whatever the hell you want to do. Like, subscribe, I don't care. There's no subscribe on this channel. Doesn't matter. I stream my own channel, twitch.tv/benreacts, doing whatever. Doing probably the Zelda DLC that came out, which hopefully improves my opinion on Zelda, because I love Zelda, and I'm into it. I want to love it. I want to love it more. That's what I want with Zelda, because I don't love it enough. It's not high enough on the list. It needs to be higher. But go out and play Prey. Good lord, that game it's going to be criminally overlooked at the end of the year by a lot of mainstream press. I don't, this is in the same ways I loved Quantum Break? Crap. Quantum Dream? No. Whatever. Quantum Break? Damn it. Whatever that game was. I loved that game. One of my favorite games last year. Brought up like no times for Game of the Year stuff. So it's going to be a similar situation here. I think they both came out in May. Anyway, fun facts. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Merry Christmas. See you next week with Zelda DLC, Hollow Knight, and Dead Cells. Playing a lot of Dead Cells. That game, just release it. It's done. It's pretty well done.